All right. I guess we're live, I believe. I think so. Okay, I'm gonna go. Okay. Hello, everybody. We are live with the Fringe North Artists Roundtable. I'm so happy to be here tonight. My name is Garrett Ryan. I'm with Artist Relations with Sue Fringe. And we have a great big group of people here tonight with us. We're gonna have some really cool conversations. If this is your first time tuning in, we are here live every Thursday, often talking with artists, getting artists to chat with each other, talking amongst ourselves about producing the festival, really just having conversations about art and about theater and performance. So it's a lot of fun. So thank you so much for being here, for watching. And the first thing I'd like to do is go around and have everyone introduce themselves, because I'd really, I was saying earlier before we started the live that we have a really diverse array of voices from a diverse array of artistic mediums here with us tonight. So I think it's going to be really interesting to have these conversations, but let's get some contextualization before we hop in. So I guess, who wants to start? I'm gonna, Owen, you can start because you're right next to me. Just tell the audience a little bit about who you are and what kind of art you like to make.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Owen Kiersdam, but I go by the name of Owen MK and Electro O as of last year. This year, I'm more of a group now. So my title is Electro Summer Station. So last year I made an album called All Life, and it's on iTunes and Spotify. And yeah, so this year, what I submitted this year is three songs, and I'm going to be talking about them. They're basically different times in my life where I've kind of grown up with with autism, and just kind of understanding that being different's okay. So yeah, so that's who I am.
Thanks so much, Owen. And then below you on my screen, I'm just going to go by order of screen. We have Ashley. So Ashley, going to introduce yourself.
Yeah. So my name's Ashley. I am a drag performer with the House of Gore, based in Sault Ste. Marie. So we are doing a live submission versus, it sounded, Owen, like you were doing like a virtual submission for Fringe this year. So yeah, with the House of Gore, I perform under the name Luke McAnally Gore Shadow. And I put on drag, and it involves, like, if you've never seen drag, it involves lip syncing. My drag involves lip syncing, hosting, some joke telling, some dancing, lots of costuming and makeup. And yeah, we're excited to have a few performers from our group with Fringe this year.
Great. All right. And now to your right, as a part of your crew as well, Elisa, why don't you introduce yourself also?
Yeah, so hi everybody, my name is Elisa Creighton. I'm from Sault Ste. Marie, part of the drag House of Gore. I am a drag queen. I have been doing this for 5 years, and yeah, what you can expect from me is dancing. I lip sync, definitely some great makeup skills, and you can just expect a great show from me.
Great, thank you so much. And Carlin.
Yeah, I'm a Hamilton artist. My name's Raymie. And I'm doing a show called Chaotic Good. It's one of the virtual shows. And I'm a modern storyteller, so I tell true stories from my life. So the show is all some true stories. And yeah, I'm also a neurodivergent artist with ADHD. So I did the ADHD project last year in the virtual Fringe, and it was super fun. So I'm excited to do it again this year.
Yeah, that's great. So I guess just since I'm here also having these conversations, just to contextualize a little bit of my what some of my mentors call the creative obsession. My focus, my creative obsession is mainly in playwriting and directing, just general classic theater making. I love stories that are related to my life growing up in Northern Ontario. And that's, I do have a show that I wrote that will also be in Fringe North this year, which takes place in Northern Ontario. I've got some great actors putting it on. That will be a digital production as well. So I can also speak from the perspective of an artist being here, as well as someone on the production team. So something I've been really thinking about a lot recently, so another thing that I'm doing, because I just like to put way too much on my plate, is I'm finishing off my master's degree. And as a part of my thesis, I'm really exploring the use of theater and performance creation to facilitate the growth and sustainability of Northern communities. So it's got me thinking a lot about sort of just the general impact, the profound impact that theater and performance and really any kind of art can have on individuals and on communities. So I think as sort of a jumping off point, I just want to chat a little bit with all of you fantastic creators about this sort of this idea of art extending beyond just the sort of entertainment value, the face value of it. So I'm curious if anyone has anything to share, potentially just as a starting off point, about how your artistic practices have made an impact on your lives.
We're all looking at each other. Who wants to go?
Wants to talk first, right?
Yeah.
I'll go first, I guess. I'm sure. So
Sounds
art
good.
for me, I think I told you a little bit about this, Garrett, last time we met, but for me, starting into drag and starting doing art has had a profound impact on me. I started doing drag very early I'm a late to life, recognizing that I am not completely, cis het. So I kind of started realizing that I wasn't the straightest of women, and about this shortly before I started doing drag. And then I started doing drag, and I just started down that rabbit hole of sexuality and gender, and very quickly realized that the entire life that I'd built was not the life that I wanted, was not a life that made me happy or fulfilled me. And drag itself and the family that I formed doing drag was instrumental in really truly like finding my authentic self and living my authentic self. And as we were talking before, like I'm getting married this weekend, and it's like it's 180. It brought me back to my roots. It brought me back to who I seen myself as in my teen years and my early 20s, before the world came and said, no, you need to be this, or I thought the world told me. So for me, the art of drag has been absolutely life-changing. So that's my kind of quick summary on that thought.
Yeah, that's so great. I like that you mentioned, and you refer to your drag family, and you mentioned that community that comes with it. That's something I hear echoed by a lot of people talking about the impact of art in their lives is the community of it. And I agree. I was talking to someone recently who mentioned that they don't have any friends outside of theater. And I started thinking to myself, that's probably true for me, even though I've never really thought of that. Most of the people that I know in my life is somehow associated through art. So it's really my whole network, my whole community of people, aside from I guess family, is all connected through that kind of core of being a creator. Yeah, so thank you so much for sharing that. Does anyone else want to offer anything in this realm?
I guess I could say a few things.
Yeah.
So like starting off with like, it started off like making YouTube videos, and I was also in like a couple of like dramatic art productions like Sweeney Todd and Shrek the Musical. But you know, I really enjoyed making YouTube videos, and that kind of developed into music. I liked doing music, and you know, I never could really play any instruments, but I found out that like you could use GarageBand and FL Studio and all these different things, and so that kind of developed me into making my own music. And it's something I love to do because you can just create your own form of art by just writing your music. And yeah, that's just what I love to do. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Anyone else want to hop in as well?
I can jump in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just for, I think all of us kind of have, it's cool to have this group because we're all types of people who are, are outside the norm, right? And so theater is so often in performance is so often a safe place. It's to find a home, and I definitely fall into that as well with ADHD, and I grew up with a learning disability, and I was in segregated classrooms, which is what the first show is about. So theater was kind of that one thing where I was like, oh, this is a space I can be myself, and not be attacked for it or ignored for it. So short answer is it completely saved my life, and it's what keeps me going to this day for sure.
Yeah. If you don't mind me saying a few words, I watched your submission last year and I loved it so much. I watched it with my mom and it really meant a lot, you know.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
Thanks, Owen. That's awesome.
yeah.
That's so great. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. Elise, do you have anything to add as well?
I can just say that once I knew what drag was, when I found out at a very kind of more younger age with my mom, she, kind of introduced me to what it was through a movie. But I just knew that was something I always wanted to do. I felt such a connection with it. I've been, ever since I was very little, like since I was 3 or 2, I sang. So I love to sing, I love to dance, I'm very theatric. I like to have all eyes on me. So once I was in high school and I found theater and I found like my group of people, I definitely became a lot more of myself. I got to be who I really felt on the inside, and drag definitely lets me be who I am, but just a lot more exaggerated. So it's something that I always wanted to do. I'm very glad that I get to do it, and it's almost like a dream come true. So I'm very happy, and it definitely saved my life for sure.
Yeah, that's so great to hear. One of the things that that I've always thought as something very profound about working in the performing arts or in the creative arts is the ability to use the speaking for myself, use this script as sort of a protective shield to explore issues that you might not be able to explore unfiltered, I suppose. So that's always been something that I've noticed as sort of like as a tool to facilitate my own individual growth, as writing has always allowed for that. So I hear that Elise talking about the like being a more exaggerated version of yourself. It feels like a similar idea of being able to explore these things that might be too raw or too tough to explore outside of art. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wonder, one of the things for me as well, in terms of the impact of theater, and I say theater, but theater, performance art. Usually I just saying theater because that's my own kind of background is in theater, but any kind of performance. One of the things that's always so special to me is having theater make an impact on another person, having your art notably make an impact on another person. We just saw that a second ago with Owen talking about Carlin's art, which is amazing. It's wonderful. Whenever
I feel like I'm talking to a celebrity.
Yeah, I love that. So like Does anyone else have any other kind of stories of seeing your art touch people in any sort of way? That's always one of the most fulfilling things to me. Is it's not the amount of ticket sales or anything like that. It's the one person that comes up and says that your piece really meant something to them for whatever reason. That is the core of why I want to do what I do. So I don't know if anyone else has any stories in that realm. I always love to hear that sort of thing.
I definitely do. Off the top of my head, just recently, we've had a lot of younger people kind of join into the drag scene in our community, and I've had a couple of them come up to me and say, I've looked up for you. I've looked up to you a very long time. Like I've seen you when I was younger, when you just started, and hearing that was kind of surreal for me. I was like, oh my God, wow, I'm actually like touching someone's life, like you said. Like it's kind of crazy how they kind of saw me, I guess, or saw that I could, that they could do that. And now that they're starting to do it, it really makes me feel like I've actually come to where I've wanted to be. So definitely that, and like all the young kids coming up to me at like an all ages show being like, are you Indigenous? And you being like, yes, I am, of course. And them being like super happy. Like I love being a queen that anybody can like come up to or like relate to. Love it.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's one of the things I'm most excited about for House of Gore this year for Fringe North, is because you are doing it as an all ages event. So I'm really hoping we get those kind of interactions. Families can come out, and yeah, that's great. Does anyone else have anything to share?
I was just going to say so for myself, I perform as a drag king. And if you're familiar with drag, most people are very familiar with drag queens. Drag kings aren't quite as well known. Even like through shows and stuff, the queens tend to get a lot more attention, even like in the venue and stuff. But since COVID and we've come back, there's been a handful of times that my partner and I were both performers, and there's been a handful of times where we've been out after shows and like the next day or whatever, and have had people recognize us. And for me, that is really surreal, because to me, it's almost like I've made enough of an impact on you at the show. Like you enjoyed what I gave enough that you actually now like because you've seen me in drag. I look very different in and out. So just that knowing that like what I did was enough that you now want to come up and be like, hey, I seen what you did on the weekend and it was really cool, has been cool. The other impact that means the most to me, like the absolute most, is I'm a parent. I have two daughters. One's 13 and one's 9. And my youngest is, sorry, Mom, I don't want to be a drag king. I want to be a drag queen. She's asked me the other day if she can be both. But her favorites are Paris and Gemini. Like she adores Gemini. And I remember when she was like 4, we're walking around the house and she put on some music, and Gem has a move that she often does on stage. The little like duck walk where you like would squat down and hop and do your hands, Gemini. And I remember Reagan was doing this and I was like, oh my God, like she's emulating like everybody that she sees around. And it's really cool seeing the kids, especially when they're that young, like looking at drag and looking at like the gender norms that underlie it. And now that they're older, we get to have all these discussions about it, which is phenomenal. But yeah, it's just cool knowing that people, that you make any impact on people at all. It's very, it's cool. There's a responsibility I feel that comes with it too, especially when we're dealing with younger people, which we get a lot, like you were saying, Elisa, like that. Yeah. That makes it a little heavy, but in a good way.
Yeah, I think it's really special to have those interactions with the younger people, especially because, and we talked about this in the podcast as well, which will be up. I'm not sure what the podcast release schedule is, but stay tuned for that. But we talked about this in the podcast a little bit as well, but I think it's so important to have those interactions with younger people because like for me growing up, and I think for the two of you growing up as well, like that we didn't have those sorts of things happening in Northern Ontario, especially. Like I didn't see drag until I moved to Toronto, and like I think it's just like maybe since I moved, there's some stuff where I am from now, but it's just starting to pop up. So I think it's great for this younger generation to be exposed to this kind of stuff. That's great. Yeah, that's awesome. Carlin, I know for you, you have actually toured some of your stuff within schools as well. So I'm interested, what have you seen to be the impact of your work on some of the younger generation?
Yeah, touring schools is great because they come up to you after and you have Q&A, so you get that immediate response or lack thereof. Performing for tweens is fun. It's usually fun. Yeah, so I really like being in the schools, and they often have the it's great because not just the kids, but also teachers and parents sometimes are attending as well, and will come up and chat with me afterwards, which is really great. It's a lot of just giving them a different perspective, and also I think there's something to be said, especially for disability stories, to be told by the actual people living with them, because I've done a couple disability conferences, and again, it's teachers and doctors, and they've read about you in a textbook, but they haven't had a conversation with you. And so it's very, very different, I think, when you actually hear from someone who is experiencing this day in and day out and has grown up with it, or gotten a late diagnosis, whatever. And just, I think too, especially for kids, they're just desperate for any sort of story about a story that if it, what's the word, speaks to the kids that are on the outside. Like I had one young girl come up to me crying. She wasn't neurodiverse, she had diabetes, and so she always felt like she was the odd one out because she had to go and do this thing before she could eat with her friends, and sometimes they thought it was weird, and it completely, I was like, oh, I would never expect a student or someone with diabetes to relate to the ADHD project, but yet she totally related to so many of the stories of just being that person on the outside looking in. And again, that's the really joyful thing of, they talk about universal stories, but what really is a universal story anymore? Because in a lot of ways, people can relate to all sorts of things in really surprising ways. And sometimes you don't know how much, your story is being told on stage until you're there and you hear it for the first time. I get a lot of people who message me after seeing the show years later being like, so turns out I do have ADHD. Like, yeah, we talked, I remember you. and like, it's little things like that where in that moment they're clicking, or they're watching drag for the first time, or a storytelling show about ADHD. It's not just maybe they relate or something clicks, but you're also just sharing that art form with people, and maybe that inspires them to do also, like, to tell their story on stage, or play with a new form of art.
I love what you said, especially about, well, I loved all of that, but I love especially.
I talk a lot, sorry.
No, please talk a lot. That's great. We want that. I love what you said, especially about sort of like what is a universal story. My theater company a few years back, I guess would have been maybe a year before COVID or something like that. We did a show that was also targeted for school-aged people. We did like high school aged, really about that sort of transition from high school to university, and how that can be, or high school to whatever you do after high school, and how that can be really challenging and scary and weird for a lot of people. And it's not something that we're often prepared for. So when we did that, I wrote a script that was literally about me, like going from high school to university, like my experience, me by name, my friends in the script by name. Like it was such a specific script that was only really related to me on the surface level. But I really believed in the idea of finding this universalism in the specific stories. I thought if I told my story in the most truthful way possible, that people would be able to find themselves in it. And I think we were pretty successful in that. People seemed to respond very well to it. So I always encourage that to people working on things like that, or like, oh, I think this might be too specific to me, or this might be like, no, just go for it. People will find something to connect to. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I think
That's really cool.
I was just gonna say, I think as long as we bring like our authentic selves, you know, and
Mhm.
I mean, like I dress up as a completely different gender. Like it's very different, but I bring
Mhm.
so much of my authentic self to it. And I think, like we were saying, like put your truth there. And I think if we bring our authenticity and our authentic selves, people will find something in it to relate to, because we're all just human at core looking to relate.
Mhm.
Like, you know, there's a reason we look at trees and see faces in the branches, because we
Mhm.
want that human connection and human experience. And I think that's what art is about, just bringing that and people seeing it.
Yeah,
Agree.
and yeah, do you have something to add, Owen?
No. I just said I agree.
Oh, okay, sounds good. Yeah, I think that is one of the things that I think is so important in smaller communities, especially for me. I mean, that's just one of my big focuses on is performance and theater and art in rural communities. But I think it's really important to have not only just a theater scene, but have shows that are either touring or being created in these rural communities that are more diverse and tell a whole bunch of interesting stories. Because it's kind of like what you were saying, Carlin. It's different from just like reading about something in a textbook or having a very like kind of like loose understanding of a person or a group or something like that, versus being able to see the experience on stage and relate to it on that human level. Like I think that's so important, and it's so important to help increase understanding of different people, understanding of different communities. I think theater and performance is such a powerful tool to be able to facilitate that. Yeah. Cool. So on the subject of impacting communities, what do you think? How have you seen? Kind of the question I just asked, but to a broader extent. How have you seen sort of your niche of art extend into the community? Like, I guess we talked a little bit about this in the podcast as well, about the drag scene and how that's kind of corresponded with other growth in Sault Ste. Marie. And Carlin, we talked a little bit about the growth of Hamilton Fringe and being built into the community there. So I'm curious, just if anyone has any thoughts about how they kind of fit into that that larger movement that is built into the community and empowering the community.
I guess I'll go. Well, you
Yeah,
know,
please.
within like all of like the arts here, like I believe that like with all of what we've like shown to people, I think it just gives other people inspiration to kind of do the same things we do. And it's really cool
Mhm.
to see, because like the amount of like inspiration that you show, it's going to impact somebody else. You know, I've kind of experienced that with my YouTube videos. I started that in 2010 and eventually developed later on into new things. And it's like it's so cool to see how many people kind of like appreciate my story, because a lot of people, when I was growing up, I didn't even have any like anybody to look up to, because I didn't know anybody who had autism. So it's cool to kind
Mhm.
of do that, just speak your mind and tell other people about it, because it will inspire others too. So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to try something new or go after something when you see that someone's done it, right? Like you see someone up there doing it and you're like, oh, okay, I can do that. And you're essentially breaking down that wall for somebody else by doing it yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things that I love so much about Fringe festivals in general, but especially smaller Fringe festivals, is the ability to give artists these opportunities to do work like the work we're doing that doesn't necessarily require a massive budget or a massive team. You could get a slot in a Fringe festival and easily do something just by yourself and showcase your art in the most bare bones way possible. But it's like just having that opportunity to do that and to share your voice. It's great that just to see Fringe festivals doing that and to see more things like that popping up, more community-based projects that are really focused on giving people voices like that. Because then, yeah, you're right, it inspires other people to want to keep doing work. And yeah, it's a kind of a ripple effect, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else have any thoughts on that subject? Cool. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, just for you mentioned Hamilton Fringe before, they're doing a new thing this year called Fringe All Access, and so we submitted, myself and another neurodivergent disabled artist submitted to do a disability cabaret. So we're like trying for the first time we're doing it. We've never put on a disability cabaret before, so we're going to be doing it twice here in Hamilton. We're hopefully going to like film things, so if people want to check it out. Owen, if you're in Hamilton, come join the cabaret.
Yeah, I'm down.
We want to make it like a bi-monthly thing, but that's what's cool about Fringe is like it's going to be our pilot, which is so nice because it's giving us like a little chance to like try it out twice, connect with artists. And the cool thing too is like having open calls. We are meeting and booking artists that we've never met before from all over, which is really cool because when sometimes like in different, like the community's kind of spread out, especially I think with the disability community, because it crosses all sections, right? And so having those moments to connect is really important. And Fringe does it in general. It connects artists. Yeah, so that's just a cool thing that I was just thinking I probably wouldn't have come up to try to do a disability cabaret had I not like tried other things first. And so hopefully that'll continue to help build that here.
Yeah, we touched on it very slightly in our podcast as well, which again, stay tuned for that. I've done a podcast with everyone here so far, so stay tuned for all of those. They're all great. But yeah, we touched a little bit on the disability cabaret, but I think that really kind of encapsulates this conversation that we're having about creating performance for a real purpose and a really focus on that community building aspect. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about like what is the cabaret going to look like, and I'm just so curious. I'd love to come see it too. I'm in Toronto now. I'm relatively close. I'm definitely going to try to come out for sure.
Yeah, it's not in the Salt Fringe, so I feel bad now, but we'll bring it. Yeah, no, it's just I think we're booking like 4 or 5 acts for 2 nights, and it's we've just put a call out for artists, kind of all across Ontario, but we're looking specifically for those more rural areas actually, because Toronto has a really, really strong like disability arts community, which is awesome. We've reached out to a bunch of them for help and contacts and invited them to the show, but we are really trying to like go outside of bigger cities to find those artists to connect with them. And again, it's across neurodivergent, mad, disabled, deaf. We're trying to not just bring those artists on the stage and provide that platform, because we've been lucky enough to have Fringe as ours, but also to make a show that's using relaxed performance style, which is really, really awesome because it's welcoming for everyone, and I love relaxed performance. So hopefully through that, and then through other accessibility measures, we can make art that's accessible, and also have those artists on stage and showcased and being paid for their awesome, talented work.
Yeah. I'm curious as well. Obviously, there's been a lot of issues with COVID and with going digital as artists, but how has that been in terms of, because we as a festival have realized the potentials in the realm of accessibility, being in the digital space, which is why we're trying to keep the digital aspect incorporated into our festival going forward. So I'm curious, within the disability community of art makers, have you found any use in the digital side of things, like not having to travel, not having to worry about finding specific locations, anything like that? Like, how have you found have you done anything in the digital realm?
Are you talking to me or?
Oh, sorry. No, I was talking to Carlin originally, but I'm happy for anyone to answer. I was talking to Carlin specifically about like doing the cabaret stuff and working with those artists. But I'm happy for either of you to answer.
Jump in, Owen. You actually do stuff on virtual, so this is
Yeah. So like, can you repeat the question if that's okay? I was like kind of in my own world.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm just curious, because of the sort of accessible potentials of working digitally, how have you found it as like a neurodivergent artist? What have been the advantages of working digitally versus working like doing in-person work? I know we talked a little bit about this in the podcast as well, but
well, I'd say the advantages of doing it online is not talking in front of people. I'm slowly getting better with that. I think the nice thing too about the online is that you can like reach out to so many more people. Like the public speaking thing, I'd love to do someday. I would love to do that someday. But I think as I go, keep showing my art, I think eventually I'll get there. Within this art, I believe that like the digital is like very, very effective toward showing off what you can do. So yeah,
for sure. Yeah, thank you so much. I know we talk a little bit about that in the pod. I'm going to keep plugging the podcast. We expand upon that a little bit in our podcast as well too. So we have a really interesting conversation about that. So I guess for you, Carlin, then, have you looked into the potential of extending this kind of cabaret work into the digital sphere?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like live stream, especially now with COVID still exists. There's a lot of people who are immune compromised, or again, like not in the city, right? And so by being able to like live stream things or record things is a really great way to continue to include people who, even before COVID, if they were immune compromised or travel was difficult, or just sick or living with illness, then they're not coming to these live events. And so that was the one good thing I noticed in the disability community when things went online. A lot of people were like, "Welcome to our world." And I think going back to live, there's a risk of taking that away from a huge population that really needs it, and who I think it was bittersweet going online for them, because it was like finally access, but also it's only access because us able people wanted that access. We were fine to ignore it before, which is a whole nother thing. But so yeah, I think keeping live streaming and like, when you make art for online, that's so cool. Like having those things are so important to have that greater reach. Yeah, and live stream is an option for like so many shows. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, like with like, because before I remember editing videos, I stutter a lot in my videos. So that's why I think digital is perfect too. I mean, live stream, I don't mind. Get nervous in live streams, but you know, you get better as time goes on. But yeah, no, I really love just to kind of film my video beforehand and just kind of submit it onto YouTube. And then that's how I kind of like create my content. So yeah.
I was gonna say, I feel like that the digital platform, not the live streaming, but similar to what you were saying, Owen, that there's so much flexibility with the online, that whether it be something like you said, like you stutter, so you want to edit that out, or people who are dealing with chronic pain or chronic fatigue symptoms, they can create on their schedule, right? Like I can create a video when I feel good and I can send it to you, and then you can share it on your time, versus me having to use all of my spoons the day that your show is, when maybe I just don't have them that day. So I feel like it opens a lot of doors. Like there's so many doors that digital platform opens for a variety of different disabilities, or even not that having children's a disability, but even those, like that scheduling thing, right? Like it just, you know, like, well, I can't between, you know, this time and this time because I'm parenting, or I'm caring for somebody who's chronically ill, or there's just, it's opened so many more avenues for people, I think, by moving to stuff online. Not that I love in person, it's my favorite, but there's just so much more accessibility online for people, both viewing and creating, I think.
Yeah.
I feel the same way about my heart is definitely in the in-person stuff. I love having the audience there, but I am very critical of anyone who's like, okay, great, we're done with online now, because of all we just talked about. Online is better for a lot of people in a lot of different communities. So you know, it's great to keep that option alive, and I hope that one of the lessons that we can take from the pandemic is that like it shouldn't have taken us a pandemic to realize it, but look how useful this can be for people. I'm on the same sort of digital subject. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about for you, Ashley and Elisa, you talked a little bit about doing some of the online drag stuff. So I'm wondering what that was like to facilitate the community outside of the like, I don't know if there was, I think you might have mentioned working with people outside of the Sioux within that. Yeah, I wonder if you could talk a little bit, like kind of extending your reach through the digital and expanding that idea of community.
Did you want to take that one, Elisa? Or?
Well, from what I remember, I wasn't honestly, when the whole COVID thing, that's when I took my drag break. So I wasn't too into it. But from what I gathered, like from what you guys did, I'm pretty sure that was it you that did a show with the one king?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't want to stick you on the spot here. I forgot that you had taken your break during that.
You know what you were doing.
Forgot you took your break during that. Yeah, so Paris and I both, so there's an online drag king group on Facebook. It's got like thousands of drag kings from all over the world. It's called Drag Kings Unite. Unite, I'm not sure. But anybody that wants to get into drag kinging, it's an excellent group. Everybody's really helpful. But I was in the group before that, and people just kind of shared tips and would talk. But what I noticed was when COVID hit, you would see people posting like, hey, we're going to do a digital show. Would anybody like to get in on it? And in particular, myself and Paris, one of our other performers who will be at Fringe North with us, had decided to do this show. They were looking for some performers. It was a benefit for a king who is in the States, so there's not the health coverage that we have, and he had been diagnosed with breast cancer. So was needing some medical care done. So I had seen them looking for people to perform in a benefit show online. And I'd mentioned it to Paris because we were roommates at the time. And we both jumped on that show, but in the like chat group that happened leading up to the show, there ended up being so many performers, first of all, that it broke into 2 or 3 different shows. We ended up splitting it, but just in the chatting with people, I made like 4 or 5 new Facebook friends that I still talk to now about drag stuff and political stuff and, you know, parenting stuff, everything. And then there was another one, a drag king who he works for a group called the Harriet Hancock Center, which is like a LGBTQ community center somewhere in the United States. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head where Marty lives, but they had just started doing a live drag story time, and then COVID hit. They got 1 or 2 under their belts, and then COVID hit. So they moved the whole thing online, and it became like a big, like it got really big. Like kings and queens from all over were volunteering for these story times. Not just kings and queens. There was some like children's musicians that had hopped on, some reading stories, some live stories, song, like everything. I think one of their YouTube live streams hit like 10,000 views. So, but again, my daughter and I jumped on a few of those story times, and again made a friend, and it took the sense of community that, like when I talk about my drag family here in the Sioux, which is, you know, there's probably what 10 of us, 15 of us, give or take any day. We kind of had some flux there, but it went from like this small community locally to really forcing those connections with people from all over the world. And it's just really cool to see the different things that are happening. And if we get into like, drag can be really political sometimes, and sometimes we don't want it to be, but we have no choice, all of those things. So in connecting with people, especially now looking at some of the legislation coming out of some of the states and stuff, just forming those connections and being there to support each other, and support people who may not be as lucky as we are, whether it be like the medical coverage and stuff. It just opened the world up so much, like wide open, artistically, politically, friend, personal, all of that. It was incredible, really.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I love the idea of extending the community across borders, across continents. That's great. You set me up really well, because I actually wanted to ask, my question is, to anyone who wants to take a crack at it, because I'm really interested. Do you think your specific form of art, or just all kind of performing, or whatever you want to quantify, all arts in general, can it exist as something that is purely entertainment, or is it inherently political? Do we think the politics and the sort of activist component is always baked into art, or can we just have art that is just art for art's sake, or is that political in and of itself?
Well, I can definitely say for drag, I think it always is going to be mixed with a little bit of, you know, activism and, you know, what's the word that I'm looking for? Like you said, like it's very much, I don't think that you can take drag out of politics. It kind of started from that, right? Like it started as an activism kind of thing. So I don't think that I honestly could see drag just being its own kind of art, because at the end of the day, that's where it stemmed from for us. Well, you know, for drag, that's where it kind of stemmed from. So in my eyes, I don't think so, especially, you know, the drag I do, I feel like is a little bit boundary too, because I don't really wear wigs on stage. I'm a trans woman who's a drag queen. I don't pad. So I'd still break a lot of the normal drag rules that you're supposed to, like a drag queen would do, right? So I think there's always going to be a little bit of activism, or I guess politics with it.
I feel like for me, the day that I can do drag, the day that anybody can do drag with it having no political or activist undertones, is my ideal society. I mean, we're not going to see it, but the day we can do drag just for drag, the day that putting on drag in and of itself isn't a political or social statement would be amazing. I don't see it happening.
Right.
As far as other art forms, I don't do a lot of other art, but I feel like the best art, again, talking about that humanity, right? It's got to come from either a place of emotion or saying something real. And do you say something? I mean, you could have fluff, I guess. You could have fun fluff but I think that's my opinion anyways. Most of it, for it to feel something, I think it's got to hit that. You guys, with the music or the types of art you're doing, Carlin, what do you guys think?
Well, I mean, theater is, I think, going to be political no matter what you do. Like, I agree with everything you said, both of you, because even with fluff, if it's not, you got to connect to it. You need to care about the characters and whether it's about, and every theater is storytelling. All performance is storytelling, and from storytelling has always been a form of teaching and record keeping, and it's like, really, I don't know if it's possible for any theater to not be political, because either you're choosing to say something or you're choosing not to, or letting a moment not happen. But again,
which in and of itself is saying something, right? If you choose not to comment when something's going on, then that's the comment, right?
Yeah. And I know I've definitely seen theater where I'm like, oh, that there was a lot there, and there's a lot going on in the world. It's weird that you ignored that. Okay, that's you're saying something by not acknowledging, because every story has something, because the whole point is to connect with the audience and make them feel, like you said. So the theater is how we change the world, is it not? Right? That's why I think we're all doing it.
I think even like you said, the more fluff type pieces, I have yet to see a play or read a play that is not connected to me to any there's always going to be some kind of point of connection, even something that's really designed to be just entertainment.
I think I'm thinking of like the IKEA piece of art that you buy that's like the generic,
there's still you can connect to something there. There can be a statement on consumerism. There's something, even if maybe it's not the intention of the artist.
Is that you now reading it?
Well, that's the other question, right? Like, does it have to be the artist's intention built into it? Because I would say there are artists, like in the realm of theater, working in something like absurdism, who their whole point is that it is divorced from any kind of meaning. But we can find meaning. You can find a lot of meaning in a play like Waiting for Godot, like just because it's meant to be kind of removed from meaning anything specific. It's there, even if the playwright doesn't intend it. So that's an interesting thought.
I love that you called it at like IKEA. Next time, if I ever do a fluff show, I'm going to say it's an IKEA show.
I expect a credit roll on that one.
Yeah. What about in music, Owen? Do you find the work that you do, and I guess music in general, to be inherently political?
Yeah. That's why I do a lot of research before I write and create stuff, because like I've made, like in my past, I've made videos of like parodies of like songs and stuff, and then I could get like copyrights, or if somebody doesn't like that, they could flag me on YouTube or something. There's so many things you can run into with political stuff, and there's a lot of that on YouTube too. So it depends, eh? Yeah, it really depends on music. You can run into that definitely with that music.
For sure. All right. Well, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I think we're at a time where we should start wrapping up. But before we do, if anyone else, I mean, obviously the thing to check out is Fringe North. But if anyone has any other things coming up to that they want to plug, please do that.
I have a drag, speaking of, drag having meaning and stuff coming out of the States, I'm going to plug a Drag King story time, which is a whole, here we're allowed, there's some states they're not allowing it right now, or they're trying not to, but 1
Like
week
drag in general? Or
in general, there's some states where they are trying, I don't know if they have passed it or they're trying to pass it, but they do not want drag performances around children. No children are to be at drag performances.
wow.
Because drag is inherently, not only is drag political, it's also inherently sexual, they're trying to say. So it's the same lines of, teaching our children about gender is wrong, and
Right.
I don't have pronouns and all of
Right.
that stuff coming out of some of the states. But anyways, here we are doing Drag King story time. As part of the Sioux Pride celebrations that are going on this week, I will be at the North Branch of the Sault Ste. Marie Library 1 week from today, so next Thursday at 11 in the morning, doing a couple stories, a scavenger hunt. So if anybody is watching this and has kiddos, come on out. I will have lots of glitter and sparkle, and be reading a couple. I'm going to read, I think it's called The Pride Puppy, and then my absolute favorite book is called Red, a Crayon Story. It's about a crayon who has the wrong colored label on him. So yeah, I'll be doing that next Thursday at 11 o'clock in the morning. And we are not, Jem and I aren't, but this Sunday, one of the other House of Gore performers who's not doing Fringe North with us, but is one of our performers, will be doing Loud and Proud with Sioux Pride at the Bush Play Museum. So
great.
That's what
so
we've got
exciting.
coming from the House of Gore right now. And Sudbury, we're going to Sudbury, Jem and I.
Yes, oh my goodness.
We're very excited. We've been invited by a queen in Sudbury to go do a brunch in Sudbury on, I want to say it's August like 7th or 8th or 9th.
Oh, that's so great.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's what we've got going on.
I will say I will be on Saturday. I am going to be on the Rotary Fresh Pride float as well. So anybody who's in the Sioux can come out. You'll see a couple people from House of Gore, I think, will be on it. So definitely come check us out. Yeah.
Great. Carlin, I know you have the Disability Cabaret coming up, but what else do you have going on?
Yeah, my head is so full. Yeah, the Disability Cabaret, which hopefully we'll be filming a bunch of the acts too, so people can reach out if they want to see that show as well. And then my show in the festival is Chaotic Good, which is again a storytelling show, different than the last one, yeah, that's kind of it. I'm gonna take August off. I'm really tired. I don't know about anybody
Yeah,
else.
you just finished a big show, so that's great.
Yeah.
And Owen, I know. Well, just tell us what's going on. I'm not gonna. I know you've got a bunch of music releases coming up, but
yes.
Tell us.
So right now, I just finished making a music video a couple days ago. Really simple, because I'm doing the Fringe takeover on the Instagram page. So I'm kind of going to show behind the scenes of how I make my videos. And last year, if anybody saw my takeover last year, I showed I made music on GarageBand. So now it's kind of different this year, showing how I make my videos. So, and yeah, I'm excited for my new album that's coming out in August, at the end of August. It's exciting. It's a secret. The name's a secret. So yeah, that's one of the things that are coming up for me, and stay tuned. And yeah,
that's so exciting. That's so all of you have such great projects coming up. I'm so excited to see what I can and what I'm able to make it to, and of course I will be able to see all of your lovely work at Fringe North this season. So yeah, if you are, so a few things that I want to say before we wrap up. If you are in Sault Ste. Marie right now, Rotary Fest is going on and we are there. We've got a table set up with some exciting activities and some information. So if you're an artist, if you're interested in Fringe, come say hi to us at Rotary. We're going to be there until I believe it's the 16th is Rotary Fest ends on the 16th, I believe. So be there till then. We'll be happy to see you and chat with you. Come say hi. keep following our social media. We have some fun stuff going on with the Fringe North fledgling, who is a large bird, a stuffed bird that's been traveling around the Sioux doing some fun kind of scavenger hunt activity there. So there's some hints that'll be every few days when the Fringe North fledgling switches location. There'll be hints posted on our social media. So that's a very fun thing to participate in. And find the fledgling. You can get entered into a draw for some prizes. Aside from that, tickets for the Fringe North Festival go on sale August 1st on our website, which you can see on my name, siouxfringe.com. And our festival itself is running this August from the 18th to the 21st. It will be both digital and in person. We've got a mix here of digital in-person artists. Yeah, I think that is all there is to say. So thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Keep following our social media. We're going to be doing these live streams every Thursday with some new faces. Maybe we'll have some of you folks come back one week, and keep posted for all of these amazing people doing podcasts, because we've had some great conversations over our podcast sessions as well. So thank you so much, everyone, for watching tonight, and we hope to see you next week.